Hello everybody, it's Tommy and welcome back to a new speed build for the Disney save. Today we're going to be making the Bimbettes cottage and Gaston's cottage into one lot together so that we can add them into Hemford-on-Bagley and just kind of combine the households and combine both of their houses and make this like beautiful garden, farm, really villagey aesthetic new household. I'm really excited about this build. I actually think that this lot turned out so much better in this version than the two lots being separated and formerly in Willow Creek. Now we've moved them to Hemford-on-Bagley, and just so that we could save a little bit of space and so that I wasn't completely filling this world with Beauty and the Beast stuff. We only have 12 lots in Hemford-on-Bagley, and I just didn't want to take 5, 6, 7 lots that were Beauty and the Beast and just fill this world right away. I wanted to do a couple of other things here. We don't really get too many Sims worlds that are as old looking as this one is, without the streets and the modern lampposts and the cars and all of that stuff that I feel like can sometimes ruin the aesthetic of some of these like old-timey villagey builds, and we definitely have a lot of them as far as like Disney movies go. We have so many options for things that we could use here. So to just save a little bit of space and combine two households that I feel like you can have together and they won't conflict very much, because like if we did Maurice and Gaston together in the same household, kind of a little bit of confliction there, but I actually think the Bimbettes would be really excited to be combined into a household with Gaston. So it will be the three Bimbettes, Gaston and LeFou that live on this new farm, basically. Now, for building this lot, like I said before, I've already built a home for all of these characters, and I didn't really want to rebuild from scratch. I'm very happy with the ones that were chosen and the original references that I used, and basically like the layout of each house I was generally happy with. But The Sims doesn't allow you to place multiple lots onto one. So if you go on the gallery, you can only place one lot down, and then if you want to place another one, it's just going to replace the whole thing. So what I actually did is I saved the Bimbettes cottage in rooms, and then slowly pieced the rooms back together from references that I had taken before we came to the lot. And then I made some changes to it because I definitely was not happy with it the first time that I built it. Compared to Gaston's, I was definitely like more happy with Gaston's overall. I had a little bit more space for it. I felt like the vibe of it really fit him and LeFou. But for some reason, the Bimbettes, I'm not quite sure why I wasn't in love with it. It has a lot going on, and I really liked that the rooms were downstairs and kind of like separated from the rest of the living quarters, but I just didn't absolutely love it. So I was excited to have another opportunity to give it a second go and maybe add some stuff to it that makes it feel more lived in and really just build around it so that we have this like beautiful farm. So very similar to how I made some changes to Maurice's cottage, I wanted to add a water wheel to this cottage. I wanted to add a pond, and I knew that I wanted to probably make this lot have one of the new lot challenges called Simple Living. So Simple Living requires your Sims to basically like live off the land, and they don't have refrigerators that autofill, things like that. So the more stuff that you have kind of available on the lot to help them with that, the better. And I thought that, you know, if we're going to do Beauty and the Beast, it seems like that lot challenge really fits with the time period of Beauty and the Beast where a lot of these characters would have to kind of fend for themselves, and it would be a little bit more like what can you grow, what can you make to fulfill your household needs, and then trading and all of that good stuff. So if we were going to do that lot challenge, Beauty and the Beast really seems like one of the movies that's going to fit it the best. So in addition to the water wheel and the pond that one added, I wanted to add a fishing pond here as well. Gaston's original cottage home had a pond on the property, but it was how we used to do ponds, which was pools. And it was actually very annoying because Gaston and LeFou were obsessed with going swimming in that pool, and I really didn't want them in there because they used to dump their clothes all over the floor outside, and then we would have like clothes all over the ground, and because of the laundry pack and everything, it just is something that's kind of like built into the pack. So I hated it so much, and I know a lot of people are really upset that your Sims cannot swim in ponds, but I'm definitely not one of those people. I really, really like being able to add water to a lot and not have to worry about covering the edges up completely so that your Sims stay out of it. And I really like that they added the ability for us to have fishing posts and stuff like that around them instead. So not only do we have the little pond next to the Bimbettes, with the addition of the water wheel, very similar to the one that I used for Maurice's cottage, but I wanted to add another pond around Gaston's and have it be like a more official pond, and make sure that we put some country fish in there and some of the fishing posts and things like that so that your Sims can fish on this lot. I also really wanted to do like a very expansive garden. I knew I wanted there to be lots of gardening plots on the lot. I wanted to do chickens, and then I ran a poll on Patreon on whether or not to add one of the larger animal barns to this lot as well, so that we could have maybe a cow. And I think my patrons actually were kind of torn on whether or not it was necessary. I think it was because of the characters that we have living here between the Bimbettes and LeFou and Gaston. The only character that really you can see maybe taking care of a lot of the property would be LeFou. And don't get me wrong, he probably will do most of it. He is definitely the type of character that is going to be cleaning up after Gaston and is going to be gardening and doing all of that stuff kind of around him. But I really wanted to have a super set up, simple living lot. So I felt like we would probably go ahead and add one just for the ability to add a cow. So that is also included in today's build. Some of this video is going to be exterior. I did a lot of landscaping. This is actually a 40 by 50, I believe. So it's a fairly large lot, which is good because the cottage homes are kind of small. So we had a lot of room to do like a large garden and everything kind of around it, and do lots of pathways in between, and do a lot of decor with the cottage living stuff, which if the cottage living pack lacks in any way, I do feel it lacks a little bit in the Build and Buy catalog. But what it does come with is quite a bit of like gardening stuff and things that you can decorate the outside of a home with. So I went ahead and added that basically everywhere. So how this is sort of laid out, the two homes are now facing one another. We have a brand new garden off to the right of the Bimbettes house, and that one is closed in by a fence. It is, I think, more the Bimbettes. It belongs to them, and I'm going to plant some things in that garden, and that'll probably be a lot of what will come out of like the simple living lot challenge. And then they also have a chicken coop that I've combined into that garden. I have to play test that a little bit. I know from some of the Sims live streams that if you put a fence around a chicken coop, the chickens will stay within the parameters of the fence, regardless of the fact if the fence is like too high off of the ground. It doesn't really matter. They'll kind of stay within that area. That's what they said in the live stream, at least. I kind of have to play test it for myself, so take it all with a grain of salt. And then I wanted to see if we could just get some chickens kind of roaming about. So we also originally had done a chicken coop on Gaston's lot. I did this like custom debug chicken coop where obviously the chickens are not real. I used some of those like ceramic statues that I think you get from base game, and some debug hay and some debug like boxes and stuff, and kind of made a fake little chicken coop that you could walk into. So I completely removed that and replaced it with a different chicken coop, and then I actually opened the fence up on that side over on Gaston's cottage so that the chickens could roam a little bit more freely. So you will get some chickens kind of running around this lot. To the left of Gaston's cottage, there is another small garden, but it has the different type of gardening plot. There's two that come with cottage living. There's like one that I think is for larger plants and one that is for smaller. So I wanted to just maybe put a couple of those because I haven't really used them yet. So I did a smaller garden next to their cottage that uses those larger plots. And then we have the barn and we have the pond next to Gaston's again that is for fishing. Gaston's interior really did not see any major changes. In fact, you'll probably see nothing in today's video, but the interior of the Bimbettes cottage has changed pretty drastically. So originally the Bimbettes all had separate rooms on the bottom floor with individual doors to enter each bedroom. So when you wanted to go to a bedroom, you would kind of go outside and you would have to enter each door that way, or each bedroom that way. Now, two of the Bimbettes have rooms on the bottom floor, and then I replaced one of the bedrooms with a bathroom. I did think about doing a second outhouse, but I really just wanted to add the water wheel to the side of the home, and I didn't want to put it next to a bedroom. I thought that maybe putting it up against a bathroom made a lot more sense. So I had to rework the interior of it because I basically decided I was going to remove that bottom bedroom and put it somewhere else in the house. So we had to redesign how the upstairs floor plan was going to lay out. I was also never really happy with the original furniture and stuff that I chose. For a lot of these like older builds, I tend to use a lot of base game stuff because a lot of the stuff that comes with base game just feels so much more like old school and rustic, and some of the wood swatches are a little bit dull, so it really fits into a build like this. But I think what the Bimbettes home in particular kind of lacked is individuality. It felt like it could have been anybody's home. And the way that I tried to contrast that was by making each bedroom themed color-wise after the three Bimbettes, because that's kind of what they're known for, is like the red, the yellow, and the green one. And so I themed each of their bedrooms kind of color coordinated and thought that that was just kind of like what we had at the time. But I really was never happy with it. I felt like they needed to look more lived in. There needed to be more knickknacks kind of laying around, more things crammed into a really small space. And don't get me wrong, the bedrooms are still very much color coded so that you can tell which one goes with which character. But this time around, I feel like I made the spaces feel more closed in and really appropriate for the time in a different way. I also added fireplaces to each of the bedrooms because they would literally freeze in this situation. In particular, the two Bimbettes that live downstairs, and I keep just saying them generally because I'm honestly not sure whose name goes with which color. I forget and I mess it up all the time and people yell at me, so I'm just not even gonna bother. But I wanted to add fireplaces to each of their rooms because the two that live downstairs have stone floors, and I can just imagine how cold that would be, as well as the one stone wall that makes up the tunnel that kind of goes through the middle of the house. And the upstairs one I think would be a little bit better. It's right off of the kitchen, so it wouldn't be so bad. But for the time period, it just makes a lot more sense that we would have a fireplace. They might have even shared a room if we were going to make this like super accurate, which I don't always like try to do or strive to do. When I did the Princess and the Frog builds, I thought a little bit about the time period and stuff like that, but without having packs that are like really, really dedicated in build and buy mode towards like a certain time period, it's never going to be exactly what would be from that period. So I try the best that I can to just keep things really old looking and not use any modern technology or any modern bits. Like I think one of the bedrooms had a clutter object that had a hair dryer attached to it. So although it had like a nice cute little hairbrush and it was kind of appropriate for the character, I removed that because it just doesn't really make sense, right, for the time and little things like that. So I went through the homes and just made sure that we added some stuff that felt like it was really time appropriate, but not too modern in any way, and things that can kind of like sit on the cusp and you can get away with it. In the original Beauty and the Beast, the Bimbettes are not really given a lot of character development, and you don't really know anything about them. They're just kind of townsfolk characters. So when creating a house for a character that just doesn't have a lot of backstory, it can be kind of a difficult thing. And I try to add my own character backstory to certain characters when that comes up. And in this case, I added little things here and there, like some of them like to garden, one of them is into fashion and clothes, and one of them likes to read and is a little bit more quiet. But generally speaking, they're triplets. They kind of have the same goals. They're all interested in marrying Gaston. They live a small village lifestyle. They don't have too many like ambitions outside of the village. So all of that combined just makes decorating their spaces very, very difficult. But I think that this second time around, I am definitely way more happy with this. As well as replacing some of the flowers and things that are kind of around the cottage. I think originally I was afraid to really go for it with the red and yellow and green all around the cottage to kind of like play into that color idea yet again. But this time around, I just went for it and I think it looks so much better. I did change out some of the doors and windows. I tried to keep in mind that I had recently done Maurice's cottage and the village marketplace, and I tried to make all of these builds look very aesthetically similar. So I tried to stay with the same wood tones, the same decor, the same doors, windows, ivy, plants, all of that stuff, so that if you saw them together, they would look like a matching set, and they're all kind of made out of the same materials and things, so that it feels like they're from one village. Because when we do things later on that are like kind of cottagey and villagey, like even Snow White's cottage, that is going to look very different, and the materials that it's made out of are different, and the roofing style and everything are a bit different. So I just wanted all the Beauty and the Beast builds to really feel like they fit together. And that really meant keeping a lot of the original windows and doors that I had used the first time around that I was pretty happy with. But I did add a few here and there. I think I changed out some of the doors on the Bimbettes, and then I did add one of these brand new windows that has the sort of like bump out in it, and put the plant in the window and everything. It looks pretty good. It's a nice little detail to the build, I think. One thing that is kind of nice about doing some of these older style builds is that I don't have to worry so much about every wood tone being super matching, because it really wouldn't make sense. Like, you can have some lighter and darker tones and stuff from different packs in the same room and still kind of have it all fit the vibe. Whereas in a regular build, that might bother me quite a bit. For this, it just feels like it's kind of appropriate. Like, the kitchen might not exactly be the same shade on the cabinets as it is on the floor, and you might have a refrigerator that's made of wood now that is a little bit differently colored. So I'm not as pressed about making sure that every single little bit of this cottage is just matching and identical. In fact, I really wanted to play into the kind of like mismatching of it all, and making all of the wood tones kind of stand out from one another, and having the layout be a little bit awkward, and some of the wall placements and things like that be a little bit crooked and off center, because it just wouldn't be perfect. It's not meant to be something that's like straight out of a catalog. Very similar with Maurice's cottage, I also wanted to go in and redo the kitchens for both of these cottages and replace it with the new cottage living stuff, because we have this beautiful fridge made of wood that is just so much more time appropriate. Unfortunately, I feel like the sink really looks like something that's just like super modern. I don't know, maybe it's not, but to me it just looks like something that I would see in a lot of like modern homes that are trying to go for something in this style. So to me, it's just not like my favorite thing. I would really love something very run down looking, or even some of the stuff that I love to use from the debug category is the handmade wooden bathtub and the wooden toilet. And as far as I know, there is no matching sink to go with it, which is kind of frustrating, because that would be something that I would use quite frequently for builds like this, and many that I've done in the past. Just something extremely old and run down looking. I always have a hard time placing sinks in some of my older builds, but I think just for the sake of this, we probably keep it all matching and just kind of use some of the cottage living decor and things to kind of go around it, and have lots of spices and jars and things like that sort of on shelves. There's also like a simplicity to a lifestyle like this, so whereas like there's this feel that I really want to clutter the place up and make it have this very lived in vibe, I'm also thinking about like wealth and how much stuff characters would have. So whereas on one hand I really want this to feel super cluttered and lived in and have lots of little bits kind of laying around, I also want it to feel sort of simple. So I don't want it to have too much furniture and too many things around the house. Even with decorating their rooms and stuff like that, I was trying to find that balance of just adding a little bit of decor so that it seems like it's a very old-timey sort of home and like more traditional cottage, but not a super cluttered space, not somebody who has like a ton of things. Especially the Bimbettes, I kind of wrote them to be characters that don't spend a lot of time at home. They are like bartenders at Gaston's. They spend a lot of time working on trying to get him into a relationship and fantasizing over him, and they're not worried about their home life. They're not necessarily like worried about working at the farm and stuff like that. They're only going to do what they need to do to get by. And even though they're young adult characters, they don't really have any parental figures living in the household, so it's kind of a mess, and I just didn't want to put too much into the house. So it's kind of a little bit of a struggle there, but like I said before, I think the second time around is a little bit better. Something else that I was a little bit afraid of the first time was adding books and bookcases, so that was like a furniture piece that I just really avoided the first time decorating both of the spaces. But this time around I just decided that I would use them, but kind of tuck them away as if they're not being used. So putting them behind other furniture pieces, and they fit, I think, a lot better like that. Overall, I'm really glad that these two households are now going to be combined into one. I think it just makes it so much more interesting. I love having a lot of young adult characters on one lot, especially when there is a bit of drama between the three triplets all going for the same man that also lives in the household, and then LeFou kind of catering to Gaston and also trying to deal with all the life on the farm. And they're all a part of the same club. If you've been here for a long, long time, you will know this, but I do have a special club in the save file called the Gaston Fangirl Society, and it makes up the three Bimbettes plus LeFou. So now all of the club members kind of live on one lot together. Their club hangout spot is actually Gaston's Tavern, so that will be fun, and I think it'll be very drama-filled and super unique, a new experience for the save file. And that is pretty much going to be it for today. Of course, stay tuned for the screenshot so you can check out how the entire farm looks all zoomed out. If you would like to support the Disney Save on Patreon, you can do so by clicking the link in my description box down below or the one at the end of the video. Thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more. Hit that little bell icon below to turn on post notifications so you can get updated every single time I post. And I will talk to you all in the next one.